Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our seminar on how Equitable Employee Benefits accelerates the quote intake with AI. I'm Patty Harmon, Editor-in-Chief of Digital Insurance, and I will be your moderator today. AI is affecting every aspect of the insurance industry, and I think you will find our discussion today extremely interesting. Now, let me introduce you to our presenters. Alyssa Ariano is the head of technology and strategy and analytics for employee benefits at Equitable and a member of the senior leadership team. In this role, she advances EB's growing market presence and innovative offerings, overseeing strategy, technology product development, and partnerships. Alyssa has been a part of the organization's tremendous growth, bringing with her a focus on digital excellence in all capacities while helping to facilitate operational scale through transformation. Alyssa has spent her entire career in financial services across information technology, operations, technology product development, and emerging businesses. Welcome, Alyssa. Next, we have Simha Sadasiva, who is the CEO and co-founder of Ushur. His passion centers on relationships between brands and their customers. Simha's deep technology chops and product vision has made Ushur an AI-first company. Simha has built global teams and deployed massively scalable software infrastructure in his illustrious technology career. Prior to Ushur, Simha has the unique experience of scaling a startup to an IPO and has held leadership positions at several other technology companies. And our third presenter is Chris Morbelli. Chris is the Principal America's Life and Group Transformation Leader at Ernst & Young. His focus includes business growth strategies, operating model design, customer experience design, and business transformation. Prior to joining EY US, Chris spent 20 years in the insurance industry, and most recently serving as the Vice President of Strategy and Operations Transformation for a leading global life insurance company. Chris was responsible for leading end-to-end digital transformations in the employee benefits business across new business administration and claims, resulting in a differentiated customer experience and meaningful increases in revenue while also driving sustainable operational expense reductions. So thank you to the three of you for joining us today.
Great to be here.
Great to be here.
So let's go ahead and get started on our discussion. And Alyssa, I'm going to throw the first question to you. And as the group benefits industry continues to be a story of growth and transformation, as a leader in the industry, what is your view of the market and what are you most excited about now?
Yeah, well, let me start by saying thank you, Patty, and I'm excited to be here today. Our industry as a whole has seen very little change for long periods of time. The recent pace of change is significant, outpacing what's taken place in previous years and maybe even decades. And we're continuing to see such transformative growth across the entire benefits industry, from regulatory, environmental, product, and certainly what we're here to talk about today, which gets me the most excited, technology, centered around AI utilization and automation. You know, we're in an industry that sits inside of financial services and historically riddled with legacy technology or limiting technology, where automation is now critical to survival. At Equitable, we like to think we're a tech-driven business that just happens to sell insurance, taking the approach to begin everything, not just with the products that we're selling, but also how does that experience impact our end clients. So we're in that relentless pursuit of being powerfully simple, and we believe the vehicle to get there is through automation and AI. The carriers that have invested in modernizing their technology or newer entrants have a distinct advantage because this will start to be the difference maker. So we've seen that firsthand in our partnership with Ushur, and I'm really excited to be here talking about this today.
Wow. And you're so right. AI is transforming the entire industry. I was at a conference last week, and they were talking about how companies that weren't traditionally even in the AI space, now everyone is an AI company. So you're so right. So this is going to take us into our first poll question to kind of get a feel for our audience. And so you can vote on your screen at this point in time. And the question is, what percentage of the workforce today is Gen Z and millennials? And what percentage of the workforce will they be in 2031? So you have several different options today. So select A, B, C, or D, and I'll give you just a couple of seconds to do that. And then I'm going to go ahead and see how our audience voted. So interestingly, 33% think that selected A. 33% also selected the B answer. And then today, actually, this is split really evenly. And 33% selected C. So that's a pretty interesting breakdown in terms of where you see the workforce today and where you see it in 2031, which really isn't that far away. So based on those results, Chris, I'm going to ask you this next question. And as someone who researches the market, what do you see as some of the key mega trends shaping the future of this industry? And what role do you think automation will play in its future? And I don't know, maybe you even have a comment or two based on the results of our poll question.
Sure. Thanks, Patty, and also appreciate the opportunity to be here. Very excited to join this panel. So maybe let me start macro in terms of research that EY and LIMRA has done. First and foremost, this is an incredibly exciting time for what continues to be a very, very meaningful and valuable business. As we think about the market, and the key megatrend shaping it, first and foremost, and it ties back to the poll question, we are literally at a generational tipping point. So the actual answer was C. 50% of the workforce today, right now, is Gen Z and millennial, and we expect that to be closer to about 2/3 of the workforce by 2031. Now, as those generations continue to command more focus and more attention, it's important to recognize that how they want to work, what they want to buy, and how they want to engage is quite different. And that's going to feed really well into the discussion we're going to have today relative to AI automation. Second is, and you can see here on the screen, I know it's a busy slide, but if you look along the left-hand side, product expansion or product service expansion, as Alyssa said, continues to take place at really an unprecedented rate of change. And really now is kind of expanded across 5 different dimensions of well-being. And as you can see here in sort of this heat map view by generation, the key to success in the future is going to be around personalization of offering, likely AI enabled, and really around how do you leverage AI, personalization, contextualization to not only attract, but really retain and also engage consumers in the future. And then, number 3, in terms of the mega trend to your question really around automation, if we continue to see the who changing, not only in terms of generation, but also how generations want to work in terms of gig, contracted labor, freelance. So if we think the who's changing and then also the what's changing in terms of product and service, the how also needs to change. And so as we think about that, automation, digitization, certainly AI, are really key more than ever for carriers and employers to really meet the needs of this kind of expanding and diversifying consumer base and ultimately maximize benefits, ROI, and really achieve top quartile performance. So a lot of exciting things in the future, and automation and AI is going to be the key to actually persist and grow.
That's definitely true. Thank you, Chris. And the personalization aspect is really important. So Sima, I have a question for you. As you consider the market now and in the future, how can AI and automation create differentiating experiences for brokers and employers and even their employees?
That's a great question. But before I answer that, I think I want to go back to the previous topic. In fact, the premise for starting Ushur was rooted in this notion that our behaviors, our social behaviors, the way we engage, interact in social context is evolving. In fact, a decade ago, and I'm going to be dating myself. My fellow panelists are much, much younger compared to me, but I have gone through the journey of seeing call centers, contact centers. In fact, getting an email handle was quite a badge of honor back in the day when I was starting my career. So, and I was lucky to be part of an industry where I had the opportunity to define technologies that really enabled humans to communicate more effectively. When I first came to the country, it was almost prohibitively expensive to make phone calls. It was almost like $1 per minute, and we would keep watching the timer how long we were talking when we were calling home back home in India. Fast forward, a decade prior when we started Ushur, I think the notion that consumer behavior was evolving to what we call micro engagements, short snippets of back and forth, where you're not, calling somebody, you're not, on a connected medium, but still asynchronously having these exchanges. So that was the thesis behind starting Ushur, and the notion that these micro engagements will provide a lifetime of experience and connectivity to people and brands was what we started our business with. And if you really think about it, the way we behave in our social context are usually leading indicators or leading trends, and enterprises usually embrace that over time. And so the aha moment for me was, that notion that we could take those micro engagements, automate that using software, using, what appeared like very early forms of natural language processing a decade ago. And so we got started by building a platform that could drive those experiences. And today, if you really think about it, the average, employee or the consumer has the same expectation that their work experiences are very similar to how their life experiences are in the consumer world. If you order, food on DoorDash or you call for an Uber, those experiences are fairly rich and real time. And that same experiences is what we desire for when we work with other brands. And we see a massive opportunity to bring brands along for that journey, whether it is a broker or an employer or an employee. I see this massive opportunity to bridge that gap. It's not that these brands can't build those experiences. Usually, a lot of the technology debt and some of the talent debt that permeates in the industry usually slows companies. And Ushur is a company that helps bridge that gap through the work that we do. So I see this as an incredibly opportunistic time to leverage technology to improve experiences and to improve just the quality of life in general. So that's the core mission for what we are going after. And I'm generally very, very bullish on what technology can do.
Great. Chris and Alyssa, I don't know if either of you have any comments that you want to add to that. If not, I'll move on to the next question. And just a reminder to our audience, we feel free to put any questions in the Q&A section. We will take questions from the audience at the end of this webinar. So, as we're going through the presentation, if there's anything that you want a little bit more information on, please go ahead and put that in the Q&A section. So, Alyssa, there are many ways that Equitable Employee Benefits might have introduced AI, but you chose to start with the group insurance quote intake process. Why is that?
Yeah, and I think to just piggyback off what Simha said, we partnered with Ushur because there is this consumer appetite is dictating that you have to do things differently than you've been doing them. So finding partners that put that at the center of the way they do business is really what makes partnerships like Equitable has with our partners on the phone here very important. Why we chose RFP intake or quote intake as the first really like deep dive into AI capabilities was because it's the first date. It's the first impression. It is the first part of the customer journey. And we knew that if we took time and invested in that first impression, that laid the foundation not only for accurate data in our systems, but also faster data to our clients, that would set the tone for the entire relationship with Equitable. So ultimately, we were like, of the entire value chain, where are we going to be setting our best foot forward, not only from an impression perspective and experience perspective, but also a scale perspective? You know, tens of thousands of emails come into carriers every single year asking for quotes on their products. These can include Excel census files, policy booklets, emails. We joke, notes on a napkin, right? There's all these different methods of which information can come in. And, you know, humans spend a lot of time looking and deciphering, you know, is this even the latest version of this document that I'm looking at? So partnering with technology companies like Ushur, where we can say, okay, we have this single source of truth in EB360. If we could get some AI technology on the front end to help us consolidate all of this unstructured data, set up groups from the beginning in a clean, accurate, and timely way, then we know that that will come through the rest of the entire journey for our customers. So it was, nothing was off the table, but we also knew from a scale perspective, this would be our best operational investment. You know, every 2 years, Equitable has doubled the size of our book of business. And so we are continuing to grow, and we want to continue to grow at that pace. And when you think of that intake process, you're taking a swing or an at bat at 100% of quotes that come in, of which, you know, depending on carrier size, segment, call it 8 to 14% of those are actually making it through to a sale. So you want to be able to gain scale and efficiency through the entire, you know, portfolio, not just what you're selling on. So it was definitely, you know, experience, scale, and then making sure we knew that could lay the foundation for the rest of the customer journey.
That's important. Simha and Chris, anybody, you have anything you want to add to that?
I'll add in a few in a little bit with some other slides, but I would just say, to reiterate the points Alyssa just made, when I think about, you know, value, opportunities to drive value, I kind of think in 3 dimensions: experience, efficiency, effectiveness. And if you think about what Alyssa just said, you know, you've got the experience in terms of, you know, faster, more accurate, less back and forth. You've got the efficiency in terms of, you know, 8 to 14% closing ratios, and really making sure you're you know, optimizing the funnel to really maximize closing ratio. And then I would challenge effectiveness. You know, you're getting your underwriters spending more time actually doing the underwriting. And so they're going to be making better decisions. They're going to be offering more products. They're going to be thinking about more holistically cross-product, you know, in terms of holistic underwriting. So, you know, this mechanism right at the front, you know, AI powered, you know, really, you know, hits the 3 E's really well. Great use case.
Cool. Very good. So, Alyssa, what objectives did you have for implementing this AI powered solution then?
I'm gonna pick up Chris's answer and place it right into what I'm about to say. So it was a perfect segue. So not to repeat, but yes, exactly like Chris just mentioned, we wanted to make sure that we achieved a degree of speed and accuracy that was able to keep up with our growth, but also outpacing the industry. We wanted to have the best customer experience we could. And then we obviously wanted to make sure that we are modernizing the way that we're doing this. Again, not just the who and the what, but the how, as Chris mentioned earlier. And, you know, I'll use this example just to piggyback off of that. You know, a lot of people sometimes hear AI and they're like, oh, it's 100% humanless or 100% automated. That's not always the objective. To Chris's point, like if you want to take an example of an underwriter, so pretend you're an underwriter in group insurance and 100% of your time is a pie chart. Maybe 40% of it is spent on administrative tasks, right? Plugging in data, queuing up information, reading things, and 60% is really leveraging your deep underwriting experience, knowledge. We want to take that 60% and make it as big as possible in that pie chart, 90%, 95%. So our objective is to shrink. What are the administrative, simple things so that people can spend the most time on the decisions that really matter? So just like those examples, what Chris mentioned, and those types of things are just what we were shooting for. And I think we've seen a lot of that come through, which I know we'll talk about as this progresses. So thank you, Chris, for the perfect assist there.
Well, and that's such a great way to explain it, because AI really does help you focus on what's really important, which is your customer. And it gives you the tools to do that just so effectively. So, Chris, in terms of what Alyssa just shared, hearing her objectives for improving efficiency and modernization to improve the broker and the employer digital experience, how have you seen the criticality of digital and the carrier selection evolve, and the relevance in terms of the quote process?
Sure, thank you. So, I mean, just look, as we think about digital enablement, I think the message and the data is quite clear. You know, digital enablement, automation, personalization, AI, however we want to talk about it, is really going to play a much more significant role in carrier selection. And what you'll see here is really regardless of size segment. You know, we talk about small market, we talk about mid-market, large jumbo market. Digital enablement will be the top driver of carrier selection, you know, right next to price, no doubt, in the future. And as you think about the quote process, as you know, Alyssa and I have gone back and forth, I mean, I really do think it's a top opportunity. It is a first impression moment. You know, as I talk to clients, it's all about how do we expand the funnel? How do we expand the funnel, right? Like, how do we grow? You got to do two drivers, two levers we can pull. Expand the funnel and take in more volume, drive up closing ratio with the same volume, right? So, and what I really think is pretty exciting about the solution we're talking about here and the results, you know, Equitable is getting with Ushur, is it does give you the opportunity to open the funnel because you could be much more efficient in terms of handling that volume, but it also helps you to focus the underwriters on where they need to focus to actually drive up the closing ratio, make better decisions, and ultimately drive profitability. And, you know, the realities of this business, I would say, particularly for small middle market segments, is think about how much of this volume comes in generally in a seasonal period of time for 1/1, right? 30, 50% of volumes are hitting the underwriter's desk September, October, November for 1/1 season. So, and you know, getting this right really does set the tone, as Alyssa said, for the entire journey. You know, more accuracy here will drive more accuracy in the onboarding experience. More accuracy in the onboarding experience drives more accuracy than billing, the service, and the claims experience, right? So it's really a domino effect that if we can really get smarter up front, but not actually place more work on brokers, on employers, but just do it in a much more better, faster, more effective way, it opens up just an unlimited amount of possibilities, right? In terms of, you know, really getting to, again, better closing ratios, you know, not necessarily matching prior carrier, but offering proactive alternatives, cross-sell, upsell opportunities, and more value-added time between the carriers and the intermediaries, the brokers, to work together. So super exciting, and definitely sets the stage.
Yes, it does. And Simha, what would you add to that? Why is digital quote intake, you know, a challenge sometimes?
I think this slide here probably sets the stage on defining the problem statement. So Ushur has been serving group benefit companies, employee benefit companies for a long time now. And our journey began looking at, you know, starting with claim experiences where, you know, benefit specialists were spending a lot of time on the phone trying to collect information to adjudicate a claim. That's, you know, where we got started. But as we evolved our platform and started to look at many other problems in the industry, it became very clear that there were very, very big, hairy, messy problems that were significantly higher value to the enterprise, to the insurer, to the carrier. And if you could crack the code on solving for it, then it would lead to dramatically different outcomes. So when we started looking at this problem, what we understood was that And this is an industry-wide problem. So I'll let Chris acknowledge that and share the work that they do, working with a number of other group benefits and EB companies. What we see is it's really, really hard to change broker behaviors. Just because you could build a digital portal doesn't mean that brokers will come to those portals and provide you, the carrier, the information that you need in ways and means that it would optimize for your intake process. So changing that broker behavior is as difficult as changing consumer behavior. That's just the starting point. And so what that leads to is you will receive information in a wide range of forms. To Alyssa's point, paper napkins and all kinds of structured, unstructured information. So receiving of the request and meeting your brokers where they come to you in however they wish to come to you is a big problem in the industry. Okay. The second problem is, there are lots of files, there are lots of artifacts that are exchanged. So having the ability to seamlessly ingest all of that information and reconcile that and extract the key pieces of information from the files that are submitted, that's a second piece to the problem. And more often than not, there are point solutions that solve for some of these problems, but you need to look at this problem statement holistically, right? Oftentimes, even if you get a census file, we see missing information. So it breaks down the entire automation if you don't have a tool in your toolbox to solve for it, right? So instead of knowledge workers or somebody on the carrier side making a phone call or sending an email back to the broker, how cool would it be if you had an automated system that caught that in real time or near real time and intercepted and went back to the broker to collect just that piece of missing information? So that's what we call as data reconciliation. And last but not the least, all of this information that comes in from the brokers through a variety of artifacts, through a variety of channels, if we can help automate that and write it into the underwriting system or the intake system, that is a huge, huge win for carriers. Now, if you look at all of these steps, they're usually significantly operationally burdensome. The turnaround time on an average can be anywhere from 5 to 7 days for a carrier to respond back to a request that comes in, right, from brokers. And oftentimes, carriers that are first to respond or quickest to respond have a higher propensity to win that bid, which is what Chris alluded to as close ratios. So these are typically high value top line revenue generating impact use cases. Okay, let me turn this back to you. Alyssa, Chris, anything you want to add to that?
I don't think so. I mean, you mentioned it several times too. Even brokers in the same office don't send things in the same way, right? So it is just this incredible problem statement that, I would say prior to our relationship or our partnership together, there wasn't really like a good solve internally on the Equitable side either. So again, layering in solutions like this to help solve and check all of those boxes as a holistic problem. Like if we had found, a partner to just do census, or if we had found a partner to just do document ingestion or just do communication, sometimes those end up becoming more complicated and increased turnaround times, even though you're layering in automation. So again, just like encouraging people, like you said, to look at things as a holistic problem, see if you can tackle it all, and then, break down if you need point solutions on top of that. I think is a good playbook for anyone as they explore some of these.
Yeah, so, I would just add some 2 points you made. I mean, number one, this is a signature issue across the industry. I mean, as much as I'm sure Alyssa would like to not have this be the case when they're sending that RFP3 email to Equitable, they're sending it to other carriers as well. right? So this is a real signature issue. And then number two, you made the comment, I think it's such an important point. And let's go beyond quote intake. Let's think about the entire journey of brokers, employers, and consumers. Everything we see, every bit of research we do is, we think about different types of brokerage firms, different generations, different employers, different sectors. You better meet them in their channel of choice if you're going to want to really engage. And so, we're going to have to, what we don't want to do is push the issue to them. We want to actually work where they want to work and actually make this as efficient, high value, and experience as possible. I think a lot of what you guys are laying the foundation for here, which is super exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would agree. I've been covering the insurance industry for well over 20 years. So from my perspective, and I feel like I have like the 10,000 foot view, I can see like how some of these trends are shifting and how the positive impact that it is having for agents and brokers and carriers and for their clients and everything. So that's really pretty an exciting thing to see. So Alyssa, what has the impact of this solution been on the business, and what does it mean for Equitable as you plan for the future?
Yeah, I mean, we've absolutely, at the most efficient level, right, we are seeing a reduction in that processing time. So, the implementation of Ushur's IDP solutions has really resulted in upwards of an 80% reduction in just that intake process in general. And again, tens of thousands of emails. Chris, I know they're going other places. I think we're doing a little faster maybe, but yes, going to us and other brokers, other carriers, et cetera. Human error mitigation. When you are reading tens of thousands of emails as a human, you're prone to make mistakes. As you partner with some of these solutions, you're getting higher accuracy rates, you're getting less, human error intervention. You're able to leverage some of that, learning and continued model development in order to make it even faster, better, stronger than when you first implemented that solution. And then truly, again, as we continue to grow, the scale has been an immense help for Equitable, especially, again, doubling our book of business every 2 years and continue on that growth path. I love to share, I said it in the beginning, we like to think we're a tech-first company that happens to sell insurance. From the proof of concept to implementation of the solution, we were live in 90 days. We've been working on the model ever since then. So these investments don't go to sleep. They continue to build and snowball and become better. And to Chris's point earlier, we've not only seen that intake efficiency and accuracy, but just because of the way that our technology functions together, we are seeing this is like a springboard for cleaner implementations, reduced amendments, and reduced billing issues downstream. So we continue to see this snowball effect even outside of what we've kind of published and produced as some of our KPIs. I would also say there's a bit of an industry mindset shift, at least since Equitable sort of entered the market in 2015. There was sort of this art to when to deliver back an RFP. You didn't want to be first because you didn't want, the pricing that everyone had to beat. You didn't want to be last because then you're out of contention. And I think as these solutions come out, when you can get competitive, illustrative quotes, fast and accurate, there isn't this need to sit on things. So, the throughput and even just that mentality shift and the adoption of these solutions has really even sort of changed the quoting game. Again, I'll say in the small to medium market, which is where Equitable is playing. So, we're continuously marching towards that North Star of being as powerfully simple as possible. And this partnership has not only opened our eyes to efficiencies in this large scale problem, but also other experiences. Like, where else could we leverage this? Not only this very big meaty problem, but even smaller ones like we've done with Ushur, like our dental ID cards and things like that. So huge benefits on the automation, again, in reduction of human error, process efficiency, and gaining a scale. But it's really opened the door to, we now know how to implement these solutions. We know what we're getting into, and we're excited for expanding it to the rest of the value chain.
Chris or Simha, anything you want to add to that? She covered a lot there.
It's a journey. It's a journey. I think, these things take time, and the technology is maturing quite a bit. Alyssa, we have learned a bunch over the course of our working together. We understand the multi-step, group request form. I can talk intelligently about insurance now that I cannot talk about, group request form and census handling and, the coding process. So I think the technology serving the business case, that's so much meaningful as opposed to just technology by itself. So yeah, delighted to partner with you.
Maybe just one thing as it comes to mind, Alyssa, that you said that really resonated with me, and it kind of anchors back to some of the mega trends and the market, forces at work. You mentioned about this, pretty incredible turnaround time in terms of inception to activation. And if we kind of go back to the beginning and we say, just the pace at which this business is rapidly changing, the ability to deploy automation, AI, and technology is important, but the ability to do it at speed, at scale is even more important just because of how quickly the market is changing. Every time I do research, as I go out and talk to clients or in sessions like this, like the market's already starting to change and we have to start looking at the next set of research to understand. So I think, the speed at which we're able to react to the market when the next cocktail napkin kind of shows up or the next type of, broker format comes in, the ability to respond at speed is also, a key driver of future success.
Great. So before we go into our next poll question, I just want to remind our audience that if you have questions for our experts, please put them in the Q&A section. I was looking, it looks like we have a few questions there. So we will go through those at the end of this seminar. But for our poll question, we want to ask, as we consider employer needs, the two largest unmet needs in terms of digitization exist within which key functions? Is it quoting and implementation, quoting and claims, claims and implementation and EOI? So just take a second to make your selection, and then we will take a look and see how our audience voted. So I'll give you just another second, and just a reminder that you can go ahead and give our experts or post your questions for our experts in the Q&A section. So, okay. Ooh, the numbers are you all are still voting. So I want to make sure everybody has a chance to make a selection. I can tell how many people have voted. So, yep, and the number's still going. So I'll just give you another second or two. While we're waiting, Chris or Alyssa, do you guys want to add anything else to what we've already discussed before I go and give everyone the answers to our poll question? No? Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead
and reveal.
What?
Let's do the reveal.
Okay. All right. So here we go. So we 35% said quoting and implementation were the two largest. 35% said quoting and claims, which was actually the correct answer. And then almost 6% said claims and implementation. And then almost 24% said implementation and EOI. So, Chris, what should carriers know about the unmet needs in terms of digital services across the end-to-end value chain? And what would you advise carriers to look for when choosing a strategy or a vendor then?
Sure. So first and foremost, one of our objectives today was bring the busiest slides possible to the session. I think we accomplished that. So thank you. I know these slides are a little bit busy, but what I'd like to just maybe say is, and these are my slides, by the way, just taking full responsibility for that. But we surveyed over 1,000 employers, really across all size segments, geos, and sectors, to really understand, okay, if digital capabilities, automation is such a driver of future experience carrier selection, what does that mean? What does that mean? The way that I always look at this slide is you can see 4 different colors. I always think about the first and the third column. right? The first and the third colors. And I really want you to index to the yellow. The first are capabilities that the employers we surveyed say they have them today and they use them. They see value in them, right? I'll just translate to that. They see value in them. The third is what I'd call an unmet need. They don't have them, but they want them, right? So if you add the first and the third column together, it starts getting at employer interest, employer need. And what you see here is if you just kind of go right from the top to the bottom, what you will actually see if you look at the top five, I mean, really everything that was on the poll question, super important. But what was interesting to me as we saw the results, as EY and Limerick saw the results, the two largest needs are relative to claims and underwriting. Now, maybe that'll change in the future, but the undeniable thing is the top five needs continue to be around claims, quoting, I'd say employee engagement, API connectivity, and implementation. As we think about, we're talking today about one very specific use case, but there's a lot of the ability to actually apply this automation AI-enabled solution really across the customer journey, whether it's broker, whether it's employer, whether it's consumer, is so important. And there's such need today in terms of capability and market to really wrap around your platforms and create this type of differentiated experience. So really exciting to see that, with where Equitable started their journeys, very much grounded in the data we see, the research. I know as we think about these different use cases, as Sima and I talk, a lot of applicability for Ushur or different use cases Ushur can support. I would just say, as I advise carriers, I advise my clients on, what to look at. I think, maybe two or three things come to mind. Number one, the answer is not the same by segment. That's the easy one, right? Number two, I think where we can deploy and what I know Ushur brings is kind of a multi-tool approach. It's not just an RPA solution, or we're not just looking for an IDP OCR solution, like the ability to bring multiple tools to the job that needs to be delivered is super important. And look for your partners that bring those multiple solutions, those multiple tools to the table, and choose solutions that can really flex to channel of choice, as we've talked about, right? Whether it comes in through email, whether we need to bring in a document, whether we need to come in through an IVR and connect into a digital engagement platform, really think about that, multi-segment, multi-generational, multi-preference need, because that in my mind is going to give the broadest, the biggest scale and value. Sima, Alyssa, love to hear any thoughts you have.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. Lots of opportunities, lots of problems to be solved. I think if we thought digital transformation sucked up massive budgets, I think wait until you see AI budgets eating up and experimentation to solve problems. It's just massive.
Definitely.
Yeah. Alyssa, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything to that or not.
No, they covered it all. Thanks, Pat.
Okay. So Simha, for what emerging technologies do you believe will significantly impact the InsurTech landscape in 2024? And how are you integrating or planning to integrate these into your products and services?
Yeah, just continuing that conversation around AI becoming such a massive opportunity, or solving problems using AI as a massive opportunity. I think what the slide is trying to showcase is that it starts with defining the business problem, right? What are you trying to solve? And so getting the business problem nailed is probably the biggest opportunity for companies. And then there's lots of choices to be made. So I'm going to use these two terms, generative AI and large language model, interchangeably. So this slide is speaking to both the ability to generate information as well as the ability to apply large language models. So choosing the right large language model is as big of a problem as defining the business use case itself. Companies have lots of choices to make. There's a lot of confusion in the marketplace today. Small models, large language models, purpose-built models, open source models, foundational models. These are all lots of different choices. And as practitioners of the craft, I think it's our responsibility to define what is feasible, what is not feasible. So I'm going to just take a couple of minutes here to walk you through that adaptation and aligning of models. So in a typical enterprise's journey to adopt generative AI, it starts by identifying the clear business use case. And that could be one of solving for a customer experience, or it could be an operational experience that you're trying to solve for, or eventually an employee experience. You don't want your knowledge workers to be doing repetitive work again and again. So there's lots of ways to apply these technology tools to solve for those problems. So within the science, there is prompt engineering. And what does that mean? It's basically designing precise prompts to ensure accurate and relevant responses from your AI models. So if you can design efficient prompts, then you don't need anything else, right? If that step is very, very effective and sufficient, you don't need RAG. And RAG basically stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, which is a natural language processing technique which combines generative-based and retrieval-based artificial intelligence models. Okay, RAG basically improves large language models by using knowledge that's outside of the training data sources. And RAG AI can provide accurate results that use pre-existing knowledge and can also process and consolidate that knowledge to create unique answers in human-like language. The primary intent of using RAG would basically be to help reduce what is quintessentially known as hallucinations and improve the accuracy of your AI responses. And if prompt engineering alone suffices, RAG is not required, as I previously mentioned. And the next 2-3 steps is instruction fine-tuning. So as we go down, it becomes more and more complex. So training AI on historical data and specific instructions to handle specialized tasks effectively is a very crucial step, but it's also one that requires a lot more talent and infrastructure, okay? But it does provide a path for enterprises to leverage their data more effectively and establish what we call competitive moats or industry moats. So competitors, can do what you do, right? And then there is continuous feedback. Models eventually decay over time. So how do you keep establishing feedback and feedback loops to refine and improve your AI performance over time? And last but not the least, deployment and integration, which is optimizing your AI accessibility across a variety of different types of systems, core systems, platforms, and integrating these into a variety of workflows to streamline operations and enhance efficiency. Those are probably the most important steps. And you can take this template and apply this to the world of claims, apply this to the world of intake, apply this to world of underwriting, to quote intake, to servicing brokers, to handling a variety of front office, middle office, and back office work. And we see massive, massive opportunities for insurance companies to adopt, these models to drive incredible outcomes for their business.
So, great. Well, thank you, Simha. Alison or Chris, do you have anything that you want to, or Alyssa, I'm sorry, or Chris, do you have anything you want to add before we go into the Q&A session? for the seminar? Okay.
I think the only thing I'd add is just doubling down as Sima started on the defining your business use case. I think these tools just have almost an overwhelming and incredible opportunity that you can try to boil the ocean or solve the world's problems with, any one of these, coming in with a really well-defined use case. And whether it's small or big, just having exactly what you want in mind would be the rest really builds off of that. If your use case is not necessarily, or you change it throughout the process, you're going to end up, repeating those prior steps. So totally echo Sima's comments that come in, what are you trying to solve? Not necessarily even the end result you want, because the results may end up being even more far reaching than you had originally anticipated. But what is the problem you're trying to solve? And then to Chris's point earlier, partnering with people that have that toolkit with several things in it, I think really helps, because then you're not limited to, okay, here's problem A, here's solution B, let's just figure out how we can make these work together. If you come with a really good, well-defined business case, use case, you have a partner with a faceted toolkit, I think that's where the magic happens. So, yes.
Yeah, I would just add, be agile, iterate, test, learn, scale. Right. I think, I think that's where these types of solutions get the most value. Let's not solve for 100%. Getting to 80% is massive enough.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. Well, let's start taking some questions from our audience. And you touched on this a little bit earlier, especially you, Alyssa. I remember you talking about this. The question is, RFPs come in different size segments with different pieces of information, especially larger cases with experience data playing a larger part. How is that part of the AI experience? So
that's a great question. I'll start it off then, and then Chris and Sima, obviously, you have things to add. So our objective with the use case was really to corral all of this data, regardless of segment size, and then potentially make it more straight through processing broken down by segment. So as an example, if you have a 10 life case that has basic life and dental only, and you're not doing experience underwriting, like that has a tremendous opportunity to go through from intake all the way through to potentially proposal output without human intervention. Like that has an incredible opportunity. What we wanted to do in partnership with Ushur was to say, how could we ingest 100% of cases in all size segments, and then pick apart the pieces of information by segment to best utilize them? So if you were to get in a 1,000 life case where we know there'd be experience underwriting, it might have much more, supplemental documentation with it. As Sima mentioned in that last slide, as a part of our iteration and development, we were sending through every single size RFP, having the model learn, like, this is what a policy doc looks like. This is an Excel file, but it's not a census. It's actually experience. So there's all of these pieces that we incorporate. What we've seen, our demarcation line between experience and manual underwriting, is that in the experience segment, it becomes more of like AI assistance than AI automation. So going back to having underwriters really spending time on risk decisions, having our knowledge workers spend time not on administrative tasks. So whether you're a 10 life case or 1,000 life case, you're getting the benefits of intake, document deciphering, setting up that initial piece of request for a proposal in our system. And then from there, automation will take it as far as it can. And then underwriters either step in and fill in the blanks, or are just QAing an output proposal. And we have absolutely seen, again, a difference in the segment size, but we're still gaining benefits across all life sizes. So again, just still seeing benefits across. Just, is it assistance to a knowledge worker who's applying that experience knowledge, or is it really straight through automation and processing?
Great. Chris or Simha, anything you want to add on that question before I go to the next one? So, Alyssa, there was kind of a follow-up question to what you were talking about, and that is, what is next on?
Say something.
Oh, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
No worries at all. I think stitching together the things we've said today, Sima talked before about defining the micro journeys. We talked about defining the problem statements. So, and I talked a few minutes ago about getting the segmentation right. I think it's about, what are we trying to solve? And so as we think about the front end, just capturing the information out of email, that can apply across all segments, capture the data, semi-structured, structured data, document or upload all the different attachments, categorize them. That could be a common solution across segment. Then you start getting into segmentation and which underwriter is the right one to send this to, based on the risk class. And then you start getting into, by segment more, I think what you just described, Alyssa, like AI driven or automation driven versus facilitated, right? And the thing there is, as you start thinking about the smaller segment, less likely prone to experience rated, more manual rated, that could be an automation straight through journey versus as you get a higher where you're higher end segment where by the way, your volumes are much lower than lower end segment, it becomes more facilitated. Right. So I think, starting with the business problem, mapping the journey out, and then bringing the right tool to stitch together an end-to-end journey, like that's the key as you embark on these transformational journeys. Thank you.
Great. All right. So, Alyssa, somebody was asking what was next on your radar in this area, and I think that's in terms of maybe in relation to like the emerging technologies that you think will impact the insurance.
I don't know that I truly have enough time in 2 minutes to talk about all that's exciting me with what could be next in this area. If I were to say, like, we at Equitable are developing like our big bets continuously, partnering with people like Chris with Sima. We are always trying to push the envelope. We've seen such tremendous KPIs and success in what we've implemented right now. We want to continue to extend this down. So Chris had mentioned a little bit earlier, just using the knowledge that we have gathered and through our partnership with Ushur to create these more personalized and illustrative quotes, creating those demarcation lines between assistance and automation, or facilitation and automation using AI. So like, we'd love to see this continuation of how do you leverage everything we've learned from quoting and apply it to the implementation process. So, maybe a broker sent in a policy doc that's 2 years old and it's had an amendment. Is there an opportunity in implementation to use, our partnerships, our partners with multifaceted toolkits to say, all right, implementation, here's another opportunity to say, we know more about you now than we did in quoting. How can we re-engage that model to say, now that we know more about you as a customer, here's some different, value-added services, some different products, some maybe a change, now that we have your experience and we've looked at it a little bit more closely, you don't need this robust of a plan, all of these types of options, cross-sell, upsell opportunities. So I would say taking what we've done, all of the learnings that the model has, and now we're just like picking it up and placing it on different parts of this value chain. I would equally say we're as excited about this for renewal opportunities as well. So now we've done a lot on the intake piece. We now have our own knowledge of our own customers, and applying that to the renewal process is also something we're pretty excited about. So I tried to keep it short. I'm sorry, Patty. So that was, I think that was it.
No, that's fine. I had a quick question for Chris, because you used this expression several times when you were answering questions and you were saying things, and someone asked, what was the expression you used, the agile test? I think there were 3 points that you highlighted, and they're asking, what were those 3 points again? Oh, where did he go? He left.
Chris, yeah, there you go.
Chris.
Sorry, I think I lost the screen for a sec. I think the question was around agile, test, learn, iterate. I think that was the question you were asking. Yeah, I think my point was, this is a complex business. These are complex processes. These are complex journeys. Everything we're talking about with segmentation, be agile, be iterative. And, when I think about how to apply these techniques and accelerate value capture, be agile, deploy, create an MVP, deploy it, test it, learn from it, iterate on it, and scale it.
All right.
Right. So perhaps it's really about bringing in the, capturing the emails at first and kind of moving it into structured format. Perhaps then it's around segmenting and automating kind of the lower end segment business and getting straight through processing, given it's volume based, then you kind of continue on your journey. So, and you can apply that, in kind of any problem you're trying to solve, is just be very deliberate about being around accelerating value capture, accelerating learnings, and then scaling.
Okay. We're a little bit over time, but I have one more question I wanted to ask you before we wrapped up. And that was, how can we standardize broker APIs to help streamline the quote process? And how can AI help with this?
Well, I can maybe take a crack at it. So it's incredibly hard to, kind of standardize some of these things, which is why our philosophy is to meet brokers where they're willing to come, as opposed to giving them, go here or come here. And I think the exciting thing about what AI has the possibility of leading us to is to meet brokers, consumers, and people in general, wherever they're willing to meet and in whatever channels they're willing to meet you and however they communicate information, right? And so I think that's just, you have to adapt without expecting someone else to adapt to you.
So, great. Well, I think that we will close on that note. I would like to thank our audience for joining us today. And I would also like to thank our speakers, Alyssa Ariano, Simha Sadasiva, and Chris Morbelli. Thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Chris and Alyssa, thank you so much. It was fun talking to you guys.
Always fun. Thank you so much.